bear with me in a second, but I know you're a big Yanks fan, so you must be excited that a couple outfield positions in the AL will be going to your New York Yankees.
Yeah, but...
Yeah? That's it?
Yeah, I don't think Clay Holmes is very deserving.
Yeah.
That guy stinks.
Yeah.
I honestly, and I say that respectfully because all of these guys are living the dream. I think we need to make that clear. Of course, they're better than we are. Of course, I give everything to be in their position. We love sports. I love the Yankees. So in some way, he's living my dream. Yeah. But he's not that great of a relief pitcher to be in the All-Star game this year.
But
so, yeah, props to Aaron Judge and props to Soto. And I hope Clay Holmes, picks up his game a litlittle bit. He has all the potential in the world.
Yeah. I think the coolest part about the All-Star selections, 32 new faces, 32 first-time All-Stars in Major League Baseball, which just shows you we're at a time where you saw this with NFL quarterbacks a couple of years ago where there's just a turnover in talent, and you got a lot of great young players in Major League Baseball. Something to be excited about because there are teams that normally don't compete, but until these players get that big deal in a few years, you're going to have some elite players on some mediocre teams, and I think a lot of people are really hoping the National League chooses Paul Skeens to start the All-Star game. It would make sense for not only ratings, not only, his connection to his girlfriend who's an influencer, Livy Dunn. I just feel like everything about Skeens
going
is
back
what baseball
to LSU.
needs.
That was part of Monty's update earlier.
Yeah. So
my personal update for
her
COVINO.
Personal update in the kitchen.
Yeah, because I haven't said it, that Livy Dunn is not done at LSU.
Well, you know why? Because what is she going to do in professional gymnastics? No offense. Go to the Olympics every 4 years? In LSU, she's making millions through NIL, and she's a star. She's a social media star. So that is like a perfect example of how NIL will benefit a student because what's the path for her professionally? Make the Olympics? That's like
no,
she's
going to be doing other things.
Yeah.
She's going to be fine. Whatever she's going to do after, she's going to be fine.
No doubt.
You know what storyline I love, Rich, about the All-Star game? Yes, Skeens. I love that they are leaning into the young superstars. They need to. So,
but Cove, my guess, let me just make a prediction before you think. I think that it wouldn't be preposterous for an off-season show. Now, we're talking about how in a couple weeks, right, we're going to get Receiver on Netflix following around everyone from Debo to Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams. It's going to be awesome. Would you be shocked if there was a Livy Dunn, Paul Skeens, off-season reality show?
Is there talks of that?
No, but I'm predicting it. I feel like you've got a young
I would not
star.
Want any part of that. Leave my personal life out of your face. If I were them.
Okay.
If I were them, they don't need that.
They don't, but I feel like to elevate that, star level.
I needed that. I had a whole camera crew years ago, guys, in my house for a bunk-ass reality show that aired on Bravo or whatever, on Style and E. It was called Empire Girls, and they just wanted me and my ex at the time to fight for camera. Swear to God, I was on the show because I needed the money. They don't need any of that hassle. I wouldn't sign up for that. No way.
So as we look at the All-Star selections, you got all these young stars thrown in with the Shohei Ohtanis and Bryce Harpers and William Contrerases of the world and, first-timers like Profar. There's a lot of cool names.
You forgot the most exciting player in baseball, Ellie De La Cruz, man. This guy turns a single into a triple. And by the way, one of my favorite stories is that he's learning – first of all, he's learning English, and he's learning it at a rapid rate. He's helping his other teammates with English, and it's really fun to watch, right? It's really a fun side story. But now the other story is that he's learning Japanese – just so he can communicate with Shohei Ohtani at the All-Star game, which I think is awesome. I think that's such a cool little side story. He just wants to be able to communicate with Shohei, and I think it's the coolest gesture, and he's so great for baseball, like a lot of these young players are. I really like Ellie De La Cruz, man.
Now, dude, you know me. I'm a National League fan, Mets. I mean, Pete Alonso, I think Lindor or Nimmo deserved it more, but Pete's going to be in the home run derby, so I think that's sort of why they may have pulled him into it. So Pete Alonso is an all-star. But when you look at the lineups, I got to say, baseball fan or not, just looking at the projected AL lineup, listen to this star-studded lineup. Altuve, Juan Soto, Judge, Alvarez, Gunnar Henderson, Jose Ramirez, Vladdy Jr., Rutschman, and Steven Kwan. That is sickeningly good. That's like, I feel like that's reminiscent of some of the lineups when we were kids, where it seemed like every position was like a stud.
These events are great to take your kids to, honestly, when you really think about it. And I think a lot of people fail to do that. If you're able to even take them to the fan experience or the fan fests, you got to do that because it's so much fun. If it ever comes to your city, go take your kids while they're young.
You won't regret it.
And you can see all these superstars at one game. I jokingly said that when the Yankees played the Dodgers. I'm like, take your kids to that game because it's just full of all-stars. You don't need to take them to any other games after that. But I think it's something that I think parents forget. I know it's expensive, but aside from that, it's so worth it. It really is. So much fun.
So is a day at Disney, so pick your poison, right?
Depends what stage of childhood they're in. If you're with a kid and he's in that sweet pocket of 12 years old, 11, 12, and these baseball players are their heroes, that's where you got to go, man.
So I want you to think about something. I'm going to pose a question, being that we are approaching All-Star break in Major League Baseball. We're at the halfway point. Teams have played 80-plus games. It always kills my OCD that they play like 90 games before the All-Star break. I'm like, do it at 80. But Danny G, Iowa Sam, Monty, Spotty, everyone think about this. Because I saw a stat, a little it was really just a picture, and it was going around the diamond. It was who has the most starts at each position in Major League Baseball history. Like, what player has started the most at first base, second base, third, shortstop? And the most starts ever by a first baseman was a little shocking to me. I'm like, who is it? Big Papi? Keith Hernandez?
Nah, because he was DH. You have to.
So
no way it's Big Papi.
So I started thinking, and Danny G, it's a guy that was like near and dear to probably like your uncles and parents and maybe you as a baby, because I was born, if you're born around 1980, you don't know the glory days of Steve Garvey.
Yeah, I didn't get to see his glory days either, but I know how huge of a legend he was, especially in Southern California. Our very own ex-tech producer, John Ramos, he told me a lot of his passwords were Steve Garvey related, and he used his jersey number for his own number when he played and everything. And a lot of kids, about 10 years before I was born, that's who they idolized in SoCal.
I'm from New York. That's their Don Mattingly.
Yeah.
And Rich, he lived in legend in the form of baseball cards for me, like Steve Garvey. That was the guy. And he was just not only good at first base, he was handsome.
He was a good-looking dude.
Yeah,
he was a star. Guy. Dude, isn't he getting into politics now?
Yeah, big time into politics.
So Iowa Sam, Steve Garvey, way before your time as well. But you've heard the name, you've heard the legend. I went down a rabbit hole of Steve Garvey highlights, stats, everything about Steve Garvey. And you know what it is, Covino? He's a World Series champion. He's an MVP. He's a 10-time All-Star, 9-time starter. And I'm like, how is this guy not a Hall of Famer? And he just falls in that category of guys that were fan favorites. They were awesome, but don't have any of the benchmarks.
I got two of them.
3,000 hits, 500 home runs. He doesn't.
Everybody has their answer for whatever team they root for, and that's where we get you involved. Let's see if we agree. 877-99 on Fox. Who's your Steve Garvey? Because you said, based on this weird list that you found, he played the most games at first base than anybody?
More first base.
Was there any other surprises?
Starts. No, the typical, like the Cal Ripkins and the Willie Mays and the Hank Aaron, like the ones you would imagine, right? Mm-hmm. No one that was shocking. I was like, oh, Steve Garvey, huh? Second base was Roberto Alomar, tied with Ryan Sandberg. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. It all made sense to me except Steve Garvey. And then I'm like, you know what? It wasn't my generation, but
and he was
he's not a Hall of
All-Star,
Famer.
Right? Yeah, but you had the baseball cards. You saw the highlights. You know Steve Garvey was synonymous with winning and Dodgers, and at least I did.
Yeah, don't forget he's revered in the city of San Diego as well. Yeah, he took that team to their first World Series appearance.
So, yeah, Mr. California for real.
Want me to
but
hit
again,
you with it?
a lot of that familiarity, Rich, for me is like RBI baseball, video games, baseball cards, because I didn't get to really see him play either. I didn't watch a lot of NL growing up as a little kid, and I just didn't have a chance to watch him.
Let me hit you up with the positions. I'll zip through it just to play stat boy.
Okay, this is the most games played by that position in an All-Star game, right?
Starts, because starts you have to be elected by the fans.
Yeah.
And so catcher should be no surprise. Pudge Rodriguez, 14-time All-Star, 12 starts behind the plate. The backup would be Yogi Berra, 11 starts, 18 appearances. So Pudge had 12, Yogi had 11.
Wow.
Over at first base, Steve Garvey, 9. 10-time selection, 9 starts. Johnny Mize,
Hey, by the way,
starts,
that's super impressive, Rich, because you think of all the superstar sluggers and slick fielding first basemen that we've seen throughout the years. Steve Garvey's the guy.
Right?
Yeah.
Second base, I told you, was to me a little more obvious. You had Roberto Alomar, 9 starts, 12 selections, and then you had Ryan Sandberg, 9 starts, 10 selections. So Sandberg and Alomar, that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Then you go third base, Brooks Robinson, 11 starts. Wade Boggs also had 11 starts. So Wade Boggs and Brooks Robinson. Then you got shortstop, Cal Ripken Jr., 14 starts. Ozzie had 11. And then in the outfield, Ted Williams, 12. Willie Mays, 18. Hank Aaron, 14.
Wow. That's
and
incredible.
DH, Big Papi.
I could be him. So
And
that's
just
really
for the
cool.
fun of it, starting pitchers, Don Drysdale had 5 starts, 9 selections, but Drysdale started 5 All-Star games, which is pretty significant.
All right, so before you know it, we'll be watching our teams represented in the All-Star game. Steve Garvey is a big surprise there. And like we said, based on that, who's your Steve Garvey? Not necessarily the guy that was snubbed. He's revered. He's a hero, but he's not in the Hall of Fame because he doesn't reach those milestones like Rich said, but has great numbers and had an amazing career and is a borderline Hall of Famer.
I was shocked to know that Steve Garvey, did you know this, Danny? He had his number retired by the Padres. And he played there for 4 years.
Yeah, he was a well-received guy, man. People love that dude.
People love Steve Garvey, but again, not a Hall of Famer. You said
well, 2
Garvey,
come to mind.
Yeah,
for me.
there's 10. You know what? They're both New Yorkers. Are the two that you're thinking of are the same two, I'm guessing, right?
I don't know if you're thinking of the same two. Look, there's a lot of guys that played great in New York, from Willie Randolph to Paul O'Neill. But there's 2 guys that really stand out to me. One of them we already mentioned, Don Mattingly, borderline guy. Everybody loved him. Back injury cut his career short. But he fails to have all those milestones that make the Hall of Fame. But, man, everybody knows he should be in there because he was that guy. He was the George Brett, the Paul Molitor, the Steve Garvey that every team had for the Yankees.
There's 2 questions that I've heard someone say this line, and I love it. It's, can you tell the story of the sport in that generation without talking about that guy?
That's true. You can't have that conversation without a Keith Hernandez. You can't have it without a Wade Boggs. How are you going to have that conversation without Donnie Baseball? Give me a break.
Yeah.
So
Well,
for me, Don Mattingly, and I got to throw another one out there because no one else will say it. Burn, baby, burn. That's where John Sterling started his goofy calls from. Burn, baby, burn. Burnaby Bernie Williams, dude, was so great for the Yankees from both sides of the plate. He's so overlooked because of the way he played the game. He's such a sweet, kind soul. He was so great, such a great Yankee. Played center field for one of the most storied franchises in baseball history. To me, Bernie Williams, watching him day in, day out, was a Hall of Fame player for me.
I'll be the non-Yankee fans to say it. Bernie Williams is the Yankee that non-Yankee fans actually like, because how do you not like Bernie Williams?
Exactly, man. And it's the way he played the game, the way he carried himself. Everything about him was a pro. It's getting late early, so we're going to do something called Crossfire. You'll get caught up in the crossfire. You're bang in and out because we have games to play, all right? 877-99 on Fox. You want to start in New Hampshire, Danny G?
Yes, sir, Robbie.
Hey, Robbie.
Hey, guys. So as a Red Sox fan, I'm going to go with Dustin Pedroia, who,
Great one.
he had an MVP, Rookie of the Year, a couple of World Series championships. That's the Red Sox. Like, he should be in the Hall of Fame, in our opinion.
Well, he's still got a lot of time. That's the thing here, right? Pedroia still has time. Some of these other guys, I don't know, but I wish them all the best. Hey, speaking of Mattingly, did you know Mattingly and Greenwell were cousins? I didn't know that.
I did not.
No, I heard that recently. Let's go to Sports Plus in L.A. What up, Sports Plus in L.A.?
Hey, dog. I just sent you something. Can I talk about Steve Garvey real quick? Yeah. He was our guy when we were kids. But then we started finding out who the guy really was. And the truth was, he was hated by his teammates. Absolutely despised by his teammates. And the guy who was the man on those teams was Reggie Smith.
I've heard stories, but as a fan, kids loved him. People loved him, and he had the numbers. Outside looking in, does that factor in to him not being in the Hall of Fame, Rich?
I don't know. And by the way, I knew you had a brain fart with Pedroia. He hasn't played He hasn't played since 2019.
Yeah, he has time.
But I'm saying, like, the All-Star voting will not favor him, much like a Mattingly or a David Wright even, or some of these guys that got injured early. His last full year was at 33 years old, so injuries really took their toll on Dustin. So, yeah, that's a no-chance Hall of Famer right there.
Let's go to Jay in Maryland. What up, Jay?
Hey, the Baltimore Orioles, Boog Powell. Home run leader, RBI leader, Gold Glover. His problem was he played with Frank and Brooks Robinson, Jim Palmer, and Earl Weaver was his manager. But he should go in the Hall of Fame now for Boog's Barbecue at Oriole Park at Camden Yards.
That alone should get him in. But no, I've heard of that. So that's a good one. Everyone's got their own favorite. Like, if you're a Minnesota Twins fan, Covino, don't you think there's like a love they have for like a Dan Gladden type or someone like that?
Yeah, but he's no Garvey. He's no Mattingly. But definitely a fan favorite for sure back in the day. I mean, he won with the team. Any player that wins with your team and plays well, you're going to have a soft spot for. Chris in Alabama, your chance to give him some props. Who you got?
Omar Vizquel and Dale Murphy.
Dale Murphy, I'd say, has to be a top 3 answer on the board because a lot of us grew up watching him on the Superstation. We had the chance to see him on TBS. We remember his stats in video games. The dude had 44 home runs one year or something like that. The guy hit bombs. So I think that's a good one. Vizquel's a definite Hall of Famer.
Dale Murphy, by the way, 2-time MVP. Again, though, Dale Murphy, get this, 398 home runs. He has 2,100 hits. He just falls shy of those milestones. Dale Murphy is a great example.
But when you thought of those 80s Braves, you thought of Dale Murphy for sure. So I could see that being an answer. Matt, let's go. Do we got Matt or Rob? Matt in Georgia, you're on the Covino and Rich show.
Man, y'all just stole my stuff, but Dale Murphy had back-to-back MVP seasons on the Braves teams where all they did was pitch around him. That's why his stats were bad. And the thing with Garvey was how can I say? He was a prick.
Yeah.
And people didn't like him. And I'm telling you, that rolls over to the voters.
It must.
Baseball especially.
It must. It has to, right? But in that regard, too, then, guys like Mattingly or guys like Bernie, those were my examples. And, Rich, you could defend Keith all you want. For what they've done in the right way, they should be looked at a little closer. Keith Hernandez dedicated his whole life to the booth after that.
Yeah.
So some people are snubbed. We're talking All-Stars.
Hey, Danny G, is that Garvey rumor? Do Dodger fans know that he was sort of like not well received behind the scenes?
I've heard that.
Yeah, I've heard that too. So
I've heard Eddie Murray, the press hated for that, but yeah, I've never heard Garvey.
Let's go to Rob to wrap it up. Crossfire, who got snubbed in your opinion? Those borderline Hall of Famers.
Hey guys, well, I had two. One is a Hall of Famer, Willie Stargell. He's a Hall of Famer. I just love the way he used to do the windmill bat movement. And the other one, he's my guy, man. I'm a Yankee fan. Mick the Quick Rivers, Mickey Rivers, man. That was my guy.
You know what's funny about Mickey Rivers is he gets all the props in the world and all the respect in the world at like an All-Star at a old timers game. But I think he gets lost in that mix of other Yankees legends, and people like him get lost in it. You know, when you have the Mantles of the world, when you have Phil Rizzuto's and other former MVPs, I think people forget about Mick the Quick. He was an exciting player for real. I was thinking about that recently.
Well,
now,
there are some players that would be in another team's Ring of Honor or on their in Memorial Park, but because you play on such a legendary team,
exactly.
Look, did you see Matt Ryan's going to be in the ring of the Falcons? Like, because what do the Falcons have?
Exactly.